listening to Robin Fland's Drummer Interviews, the #1 drum radio show in all of Los Angeles,
the world, the galaxy.
I'm Robin Flands, and this is Robin Flands Drummer Interviews. And this interview is sponsored by ePad Practice Pads, the only drum practice pad made with Enduraflex playing surface. And I'm here with my co-host and producer, Ed Eblin.
Welcome, everybody.
And Joe Lamond is today's guest, and he is the president of NAMM. But
better than that.
but I have heard him say that first and foremost, he is a drummer. So this interview is very long overdue. And today, we are going to unearth a lot of wonderful information and some fun stories. So, Joe.
Hello, Robin.
Ooh, that was an evil laugh.
It's fun already.
I want to talk first and foremost about you, the drummer, like you said, first and foremost. And so I want to know first how you got the bug.
Wow. I don't know if any drummer can truly remember when the first, inclination hit. I can tell you when the first time I had a pair of drumsticks in my hand, but that was, I had already been thinking about it. I think we had a tambourine in the house, and I was playing that as if it were a drum set. But I had a cousin who was in drum corps, where I grew up in Western New York, and he had a marching snare and a pair of sticks. And we might have been over at their house for some holiday or something, but...
And you were how old?
The feel... Oh, my God. 6 or 7, maybe.
Okay.
The feel of those sticks in my hands and the sound of that drum, that's where I locked in and knew that was going to be my instrument.
It's amazing. It just always blows me away to hear people talk about the connection and what that instant thing, that feeling, that just that connection, that thing. It's just, it's like I don't know. It's like that predestiny or something. I don't know. It's like God made me do it. I don't know. I
think people are wired certain ways, and I think us drummers, there's something about the power in it or the rhythm, the feel. There's something that appeals to the way we're wired. And the fact that I've ultimately gone on to have a business career, isn't that rare either. I find more and more drummers that have, those who continue to play and those who have, maybe found other ways ultimately to make a living. Mm-hmm. But there's a common thread in the drummers that I know, and that they tend to have a certain kind of view on life, a pragmatic view, a get things done kind of view. You can count on drummers, and it goes so against the stereotype, but you actually get stuff done.
They are to be counted on, and as humans too. Okay, that's my take on those, because I've had a lot of great people in my life that are drummers, and they are people you can count on. So. So take me through the whole thing. I mean, were there lessons? Take me through your thing.
Well, I had an older brother, and that instantly opened up a new world for me musically. He was a couple of years older, so he had the record collection, and then started a band. He was a bass player, and so I joined and got to play with older, more experienced players early on. I think I did my first gig, my first paying gig, when I was probably 6th grade. What are you in 6th grade? Maybe 10?
Were you
so that's when I actually started playing professionally, I guess, technically, if you're getting paid for it. But it was always more rock, just, learning by listening. It wasn't until I moved out to Sacramento and started working in music retail stores that I actually took drum lessons for the first time. Then actually learned how to read music and learn the rudiments. And so I'd already been playing by that time, probably 10, 12 years. So I went back to actually learn some of the fundamentals that I had not learned by just listening by ear, playing by ear growing up. But yeah, I was lucky. Like a lot of kids, I worry about today, maybe if they don't have enough experience playing with other people, there was nothing like just being in a band and all of a sudden having to listen carefully, play what parts were needed. I mean, that was such a lesson, and I always encourage anyone who's starting out to, find as many opportunities you can to play with other people, because that is where you really learn music.
Absolutely right. So so you weren't in the band programs at school or any of that?
No, and it's funny because I do so much lobbying now for music education with NAMM, and it's interesting because those first opportunities are real gateways, and
right.
I wanted to be the drummer in fourth grade in my school band, and they already had one, and there really wasn't much room for that, so I put a violin in my hand, and that just wasn't my thing. And so it's interesting how when we lobby for music education, it's really about inclusion, about finding ways for everyone to get involved in the ways that they find that fit. So I wish we had more kind of programs that we have today where you can get multiple, people involved in either drum circles or percussion, ethnic percussion, stuff like that. So.
That's really interesting that you say that, because there is, usually only one, maybe two, like two drummers in the school band. And that is a difficult proposition. I don't know what would have happened, like, to my son if he hadn't been accepted as the drummer in middle school. And I was just, I just thanked the wife of that middle school teacher just this morning on Facebook, because my son happened to be part of the Broadway show that took 6 Tonys last night.
Wow, how exciting.
And she commented on my Facebook and said, congratulations. And I said, well, thanks to your husband, he was able to move forward on the thing he loved. But that you mentioned that if someone had put, if Matt McKagan had put the violin in his hand instead of giving him the opportunity to play the drums in the middle school band, what would have happened? Where, he wouldn't have been on that Tony stage last night.
Well, those are windows that open, and I think, again, the passion we bring to lobbying for music education is inclusion, so that all children have a possibility to play in the way they want. It could be a mariachi program, it could be a technology program, but the idea that those windows open and then they shut, and it comes down to the access, but it also comes down to the teacher too, right? I mean, how often can a good teacher keep someone engaged and moving forward, or conversely, can a bad teacher sour someone to the experience? So, if we're going to have more people playing, I think those are two key critical components: access so that everyone has a shot at it, and a good teacher that actually motivates you to keep playing and moving forward instead of, hey, this isn't for me. Too many people, you don't have any talent.
Absolutely.
I've heard so many people tell me they used to play, but a teacher told them they didn't have any talent.
Absolutely.
And it breaks my heart to hear that, So,
absolutely. That is the worst. And so, and you didn't seem to do too badly without any of that. So, that said, you went off and then you moved to the West Coast. And then you did some sort of homework, so catch up, and
I mean, it's a long sort of tale, Robin. You don't want to hear about it.
Well, what music?
Boy moves to California. Boy makes good. Gets a job. No, I mean, I wanted to be a rock star, right? I mean, isn't the NAMM show full of 100,000 people who all wanted to be in the Beatles? Really? I mean,
isn't
I mean, that's who we are as an industry. So, I moved to California as soon as I got out of school, had a girlfriend in California, so that was, those are two good reasons to go to California.
Sure.
I thought my career would advance, and I was in love. But I followed my parents' advice, which was always, you got to have a day job. You got to have something to fall back on. So I better work in a music store. I'll be meeting people that I might want to, play with in the future, and I get 40% off all my gear. How exciting, So I went to work for Andy Penn's Drum and Guitar City in Sacramento, and it was just a wonderful place. It was the kind of Cheers bar of music stores where everyone knows your name and you're instantly in the thick of things. But I also knew, because it was a good drumming store, and they had a good teaching program, and they really kind of immerse themselves in the craft of drumming. But I realized that I had to actually learn more about it. And again, my teacher, I had a really good teacher named Jim Caselli, and he was a great player in town, did a lot of the studio work. I actually got to go in the studio and watch him play a bunch of sessions. I got to do a couple sessions with him. So, I was learning by doing, and also it made it kind of come alive. And plus, I was gigging probably 3-4 nights a week at that time too. So everything was being, everything was being tried out. Everything you learned, you could instantly get on the bandstand that night and incorporate it into your playing. So
nice.
It was a really interesting, way to kind of go back,
productive time,
understand some of the things that I was already doing intuitively, and knowing why I was doing them, or break some bad habits too. It was a little bit of both.
And what was the music? I mean, you said you wanted to be a rock star, but what was? I mean, was that the
This
music
is
you were
early
loving?
'80s, so. Yeah, this is early '80s, so ironically, before I joined Tommy Two-Tone, I was playing 8-6-7-5-309 before I was even in the band. I was doing it in the cover band,
Okay.
This was Northern California, Bay Area, so, think of the bands that were big then. Tubes, Greg Kinn, Eddie Money, Tommy Two-Tone, Loverboy. This was, the early age of MTV and all that. So, and clubs, you could play 3-4 sets a night in a club with your band and actually make a go of it. Some people played professionally. That all changed mid-'80s when I think the live bar scene, a lot of things changed that some of the that impacted the amount of live music that was being played in that era. But yeah, I played a lot of clubs and always got up the next morning to work in the store. So it kept me focused, and I was learning about the business end of it too. I was going to my first NAMM show was January of 1983.
Wow.
So I got exposed, as a buyer to go to the show and, hey, look at these cymbals or look at this new drum line. And, I was able to really incorporate it in every aspect of my life, the performing side and the business side. Ultimately, the business side won out, interestingly enough.
So wait, so back up. So when was Tommy Two-Tone?
Yeah, so I got to, one of my friends was... He knew a lot of people in the Bay Area, and Tommy Two-Tone had a hit, but was looking for a new drummer, and I auditioned and got the job, so I played with Tommy for many years and played around the country, toured the country, did Asia, kind of did a bunch of different tours with Tommy, and I kind of lived a little bit of that Spinal Tap kind of moment where, the tours were getting a little more small, I guess, or as Spinal Tap's manager, Ian Faith, would say, it's not that the audience was shrinking, they were just getting more selective. And the idea that I started doing some of the books, I started doing the collecting of the money at the end of the night, the settlements with the promoter, and doing some of the advance work. And started realizing that, there's a business side of touring too, beyond just playing. And that led directly to me being the production manager for Todd Rundgren, one of my absolute all-time favorite artists, who had great drummers like Mark Urbano, Prairie Prince, Willie Wilcox. So I got to work with all those guys. But on the business side, I would actually set up the tours, set up the staging, do all the production, and then get to watch the show from the side of the stage every night. So I got to see some of the best drummers play night after night after night. And occasionally Todd would let me sit in, which was always fun. So there was always a little bit of, I think at that point was the pivot to more the business side and realizing that maybe I was wired, as much as I loved drumming, I also found a way to be productive in doing the business side of the music. So that was late 20s. I played most of my 20s. Late 20s, I decided I started doing both, the business more and a little bit of the playing. And I was 29. I met my future wife while Todd was recording an album in San Francisco. We were playing at the Palace of Fine Arts, and through a friend of a friend I met who ultimately became my wife. We've been married 26 years now, and that's when I realized, okay, I don't think road life is conducive to a good, healthy married life, for me anyway.
Okay.
And that's why I went back into retail. I went back to Skip's Music in Sacramento and started working my way up the ladder back in running, a very large, I think it was a $12 million retail small chain at that time. And it was great. I was immersed back in business again, and I just loved it.
And on that note, we're going to take a moment for a break, and we will be right back.
If you could design your own drum practice pad, what would it feel like? At ePad, our EnduraFlex practice surface was perfected to eliminate extreme bounce and unrealistic rebound. The benefits of ePad include quiet playing surface and shock-resistant properties that help reduce the risk of stress-related injuries. ePad offers the perfect feel and energy return for developing speed, endurance, and control. You will meet the challenge of the weaker hand with ePad. Warm up with our knee pads, tabletop practice pads. Warming up on ePads provides a natural transition from practice pad to drum set. At ePad, we know the need for speed, control, and endurance. Get your chops together with ePad's EnduraFlex playing surface. Practicing with ePads builds your finger, wrist, and forearm strength and helps you gain better control and endurance. Into feel? Well, ePads replicate the response and feel of a real drum. Our Pro Deluxe knee pad is portable, convenient, and lightweight. Perfect for the beginner, intermediate, or pro touring drummers. Find out why our products are a must-have. ePad, your source for high-quality drum set, practice pads, and accessories.
Hi, this is Robin Flans from Robin Flans Drummer Interviews. Please be sure to check out robinflansdrummerinterviews.com, where you can find some of my classic interviews such as Jeff Porcaro, Vinnie Colaiuta, Ringo Starr, and Carlos Vega, and many, many more. Again, that's robinflansdrummerinterviews.com. And yes, you might want to check those out, and they're in audio form, and you get to listen to them talk and laugh and be themselves, and it's just a whole different experience than reading them in the magazine.
Hope you're
and
enjoying
it's
the show.
just a lot of fun, and boy, we're having a little bit of squirrely. I hope you're enjoying the show.
There are several ghosts in this machine today.
And you're going to want to check those ePads out at epadco.com. And so we're back with Joe, and I want to know, so how did the transition with NAMM come about? You began, I think, in the late 90s? Is that right?
Yes. It was interesting as, again, all these experiences build on each other, don't they, Robin? Haven't you seen that in so many people you've interviewed?
Oh, yeah.
That things you learn along the way open up doors that you never even envisioned when you were thinking about it. So, the running the retail business in Sacramento was just a wonderful experience. I would have never left, probably. But the opportunity came to come work at NAMM. And Bob Morrison, who ran NAMM Market Development at the time, we had worked together on this program called Weekend Warriors. We were trying to get the baby boomers back into playing again with a program like that at Skips that we had brought to market. It was a really successful program for us at that store. NAMM saw it, wanted to license it so that other stores could do it. We were very open to that. So I got to work with NAMM. And then when Bob got the opportunity to go to New York to start VH1 Save the Music, which was a really wonderful program named at Strengthening School Music, he called me and said, you should come to NAMM and do this, the thing you've been doing up in Sacramento already about expanding the market. You should do it here. And boy, that was a tough call, and because it would have ultimately entailed a move and to Southern California, and I took it, and within two and a half years, I became CEO of NAMM. And I guess my point about the transfer effect of any of these skills, every single day, I still use everything I learned from the bandstand, from being a production manager, from working the counter in retail, from all these things. I tell a story about being in Cleveland with Todd Rundgren on tour one summer, and we had loaded in our crew. We work with a union crew everywhere we go, so we loaded in, and our monitor engineer had gotten into a little scuffle with one of the Cleveland local union members and load-in. And the union there is very powerful, and they basically, it's called the dark stage when there's a dispute on the workforce. The union steward comes out on the stage and literally puts a lamp and turns it on and shuts off all the other lights. That's the dark stage. Means nothing happens.
God.
You are stuck, dead in the water. And there's a show going on that night supposedly that's sold out. That's really bad when the things stop like that. So here I am, a 26-year-old production manager, hair halfway down my back, and I'm now having to negotiate with this union steward who's probably old enough to be my grandfather. And we're sitting on the edge of the stage together, and he begins to tell me what happened. Your guy got in a fight with my guy, and he's not happy about it. I'm not happy about it. What are you going to do about it? And so I listen a little carefully, and I, say, oh, I'm out of the guy, that was pretty bad at what he did. I think he's having a little trouble at home and might be affecting his performance, and stuff. And I'm sure he didn't really mean what he said. And the union steward goes, yeah, well. And I said, well, what do you say? What do you get these guys to apologize to each other, and we can, probably get back to work here? And he looks at me and he goes, okay. We shook hands on it. I mean, that simple act of negotiating, wow. I practiced on Capitol Hill 2 weeks ago when we were there for the fly-in. I just used it at lunch today with working on a partnership we're working out for the 2018 NAMM show. I mean, that simple afternoon, I would have never realized that act continues to inform my negotiating ability every single day. And I think that's what, if I were a younger person, I'd be thinking about that very carefully, that everything you're doing today is probably going to be very useful to you sometime in the future. You just may not know it yet. So pay attention, because all this stuff counts,
Yes, it does.
So
you are
it's kind of funny how it all has culminated in what I'm doing today. And I never even knew that this job existed back then. I never knew there was such a thing.
Absolutely. No, that's good advice. Keep your experiences and memories close to you, because you have to reference them. Yeah. That's good information. And
that was 19 years ago I came to NAMM, believe it or not. Scary. That was 1998, and I've been CEO for 16 years now.
Wow.
So It happens fast. It goes fast, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah. Time is slipping, isn't it? So I don't want to think about that. So tell me what exactly your duties as this presidente are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could sum up, there's a many roles, but I think I'll sum up my most important role, which is we produce trade shows around the world. And when we're done with the trade shows and we pay all the bills, if we do it right, there's something left over. And with what's left over, we reinvest that money into grants, scholarships, music programs like Little Kids Rock or VH1 Save the Music, music brain research that links, early childhood music with greater student success, or as we age, playing music with, slowing down the incidence of dementia or any other health problems.
Wow.
So, and then promoting music. And if we do all that, then the awareness of the benefits of music or the access in school music grows. And if we do that, then the companies that belong to them, 10,000 companies around the world, they grow. And if that happens, then they come back the next year to our trade show and buy a bigger space.
So let's go back to the beginning with the trade show. So is it your job to put this trade show on?
Yep.
So what does that entail?
From booking the space, and we're held out decades into the future in some of these venues, to, and again, I don't do any of this. You got to realize that's a great role.
So you delegate.
I'm a cushy, figure-headed, kind of guy that sits around eating bonbons, watching soaps all day.
So you delegate.
We're really lucky to have a team. We've got the most fantastic team I think anyone could ever dream of. We definitely have a dream team, from whether it's trade show operations, which is all the things at the show, the concerts, the moving 100,000 people safely in and out, keeping, everyone fed, how the show is set up. A sales team that fills it up with great exhibitors and brings people from around the world. The education team that creates all these great NAMM University stuff, and now we've got partnerships like with AES and others who are bringing wonderful education to the NAMM show. Everything that's related to working with the city and the hotel community, making sure that the rooms don't go to market rate. When you put that many people in town, rooms would double and triple. We fight to make sure that they stay affordable. Everything having to do with the show from beginning to end, because NAMM is as an association, it's an association-owned trade show, which is wonderful. That means all the revenues go back into the industry versus going off into a for-profit company. So, but the flip side is we are responsible for a lot of making sure that goes well, and hoping it doesn't rain, and hoping that, a bunch of, that the East Coast doesn't get snowed in so no one can fly out and get to the show. I worry a lot. I mean, that's probably maybe the biggest part of the job.
Well, you can't control
it
that.
pays
You're
to
not
worry.
God. So there's nothing you can do about that, and your team can't either.
Okay, I'll repeat that to myself about January 16th, and then maybe again on the 17th, and maybe twice on the 18th. Yeah, I'll try and remember that.
Okay, I give you permission not to stress over that.
Thank you.
So, let's just talk for a minute about some of the most interesting drum innovations you might have seen that through the years that have come through that marketplace.
You mean it relates to the show, or?
Yeah, I mean that you've seen, through the retail. I mean, I know that as you're walking the floors, I mean, you can't tell me that the drum floor doesn't say, Joe, come to me.
Oh, I know. I mean, it is the quintessential, it's the crucible where all these great products that come to market get tested, right?
Yeah.
I mean, new products will either thrive in the marketplace or not, and it's the NAMM show and the attendees that really, kind of see them in that environment. It's the best place in the world for that, and the community it brings together. I mean, I think for some reason, the drumming community especially seems especially connected.
Well, I've always thought
I
so.
don't know if the lead singers get together the way the drummers do and hang out, or I suspect they don't. There's only so much room for an ego.
And I think
But
the
I
guitar
can tell you-
players just hit each other over the head with their guitars.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the closest would be the bass players, maybe, because there's something unique about the drummers, and I can tell you, going back to my very first show where I was blessed enough to meet Mark Craney from Gino Bonelli, who was one of my heroes. May he rest in peace. But I tell you, one of my most memorable times at NAMM was I was walking through the convention center lobby. It was like right when the show was breaking, so there's people flowing everywhere. But in the middle of all this madness was, I think, check my memory on this, but I think it was Steve Gadd, Peter Erskine, Greg Bissonette, I don't know, 3 or 4 other of my favorite drummers, maybe Dave Weckl of all time. They might have just left like a Zildjian signing or something. But they were all just standing there in the lobby together talking. And who knows, maybe they were talking about what they're going to do that night or something. But I just looked at that group and said, this is the most important gathering of drummers probably I've ever seen in my life. And they're just hanging out. They were just laughing and, telling jokes or something. And I just remember that memory is locked in my brain of, that was such a special moment at the NAMM show. And you see those, they happen day in and day out of the show. There's just so many things that are happening like that. But that one particularly stood out in my mind because it told the story of the camaraderie that exists between drummers. And
they love each other.
It was a beautiful moment. And again, just, you see that happening all around at the NAMM
Always.
show. And so it's pretty cool. That was a good one, though.
So again, what are some of those, interesting innovations that you've seen through the years that you just enjoy, have enjoyed maybe tinkering on and going through the hall?
It's a good question. I mean, drums fundamentally, right? I mean, have very little change at the base. I mean, we're not quite as maybe unchanging as the pianos are, which is, to me, virtually unchanged in 310 years since its invention.
Right.
But the drums, to me, what are very unique, and I see every year on the show floor, whether it's in the big, primary, anchor manufacturers or the kind of tinkerers that are just, have a dream and bring something to market, is that we all have the desire to have something unique. And our drum sets reflect our personalities, So the brand we choose to play, the accessories that we put on, the type and kind, the number of cymbals we play, or what kind of percussion instruments we add to it. I think, to me, over the years, the biggest and continued innovations I've seen have been in the myriad of ways there are for us to express our personality through our instruments. And again, if you play a black Les Paul, or a regular, just a Fender Strat, there's only so many ways you can customize that. But a drum set, it's a blank piece of paper just waiting for a drummer to put their own stamp on. So I've seen that as most. The amount of accessories, the amount of customization you can do on what is fundamentally, a hollowed out log that we hit, that we strike. I mean, fundamentally, that's the drum. But we've made it our own, and of course, the electronics have made it so much, have taken it so much further. You digitize anything in this world, whether it's the ability to find a guy to drive it to the airport or to get online and buy something. If you can digitize something, it ratchets it up dramatically, and I think that's what we've seen with the electronics.
Right.
It's pretty cool to be able to see where that goes. So that's almost a whole new instrument. I think we play it sometimes very differently than a traditional drum set. But
Right.
I have both, and I think a lot of people have both. They live in both worlds, the acoustic world and the electronic world.
Right.
Hey, Joe, I had a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
you've been with the NAMM, and obviously you're a drummer first, but because you've been at the NAMM and you're so you're almost like the first one to be aware of what all the competitors are doing, because you're in this one place and you have all these manufacturers exhibiting at your show.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever come to you and said, can you give me an idea on what to improve? If you're looking, I don't know how many drum companies exhibit. I did for years. I probably did about 5 or 6 years with EPAD at NAMM. But that is the one place where everybody's under the same roof. I was just curious if anyone, either a player or another manufacturer, said, you're the guy that sees everything, and you're the guy that knows everybody. What would be a good innovation for a product? I'm just curious about that, because, many...
It's a very good question. I mean, I think some of my favorite times have been sitting with Remo having this conversation. What's next? What could be developed? And those conversations tended to sometimes go more into how do you bring the drum to the masses? So what type of product or design or shape? But I can tell you that the one that pops out the most are conversations with Remo, because he was insatiably curious about, and again, from this position, to be able to experience all the instruments, what was going on in ukuleles and how that was driving new sales, or what was going on particularly maybe in China with some of the instrumentation there. But it was always about, in this case with Remo, how do we get more people to play, not specifically how do I get more people to play my stuff.
Right.
It was really an interesting, more holistic approach. So I would say the conversations I'm in are more about that. How do we get more people to play? How do we make instruments easier to take those first steps? How do we get someone who's now on the journey to have more success quicker and sooner, so they're more likely to stay with it and less likely to drop out? So I think my conversations are less on particular inventions or iterations of a product, and more about how do we expand the number of people who are going to be able to play this thing.
I'll tell you, for the years that I was there, it seems that everybody who enters Hall D has an internal drum gene that they were born with, because everyone just instantly is attracted to drums as an instant reward. You hit something, it makes a sound, whether it's a cymbal or a drum. And it's amazing. I don't know how that converts into sales necessarily, but I was always amazed that it was like a magnet, especially for the younger ones. I'm not saying babies and toddlers, but, in the teenage, even if they couldn't play, they'd sit down at a kit and they'd start the whole thing. But thanks. I was just curious about that, because you were seeing both sides of it, and that's a big advantage.
I think that was one of Remo's favorite lines. Someone would say, "Oh, I'm not a musician." He'd say, "Do you have a pulse?" And he'd grab their arm and feel the pulse. And he'd go, "Ah, you're a drummer."
Wow, yeah.
Rhythm.
That's funny.
So
no, that's a good question. And I think it's been more about specifically the interest that most manufacturers have to get more people to play. Like we work with the PMC, the Percussion Marketing Council, and it's all about that. How do we get more people to play? How do we get more kids to play? How do we get more women to play? How do you get more seniors to play? And actually, it's where I actually get more excited anyway. I mean, the marketplace is, like I say, a crucible, and it will always be. It's a perfect crucible. What it tends to, you can have a flash in the pan, but anything that's sustainable is usually because they hit on something that works. Things that are really long term. That are successful, those are ideas that people really appreciate. But there's always great ideas that are coming at NAMM, and it's just some of them will never make it. That's just the way it works. That's just one of this guy who came out with a guitar shaped toilet seat. I mean, it was
yeah.
genius, but it just wasn't. It wasn't time,
I can't imagine sitting on that. I don't know.
I
don't
mean,
know.
You just gotta love the creativity, but hey, every idea has its moment, and maybe that one we just weren't ready for that one.
You just know that guy was a drummer who invented that, and probably not for the right reason.
Your words, not mine.
Well, no, they're mine. I'll take credit. You can sue me for that one. But and I just wanted to say that you're exactly, it's right on the money about drummers being a really tight knit community. And because I used to have a place called Drummers Woodshed back in the Valley several years ago, and it was a rehearsal place, but it was just drums. And Remo was a part of it. It was Remo and Pork Pie, Bill Dedamore over there, Pork Pie, and Sonar, and Mapex all became, Zildjian and Peisty all became a part of this thing. But these drummers, and I'm talking about guys like, I want to mispronounce, but Sywell, Denny Sywell, Bernard Purdy. I mean, all these guys came over and hung out. There'd be like 11-hour hang sessions at this place.
Wow.
And it was like we sold tiny little bit of retail, but the premier thing was the 3 rooms that were all stocked with the drums, the cymbals, and the learning tapes from
DCI.
Thank you from DCI, and Robin helped with that too to an extent of what she could. And Eddie Shaughnessy taught there for a couple of years. So, but it's that whole community thing. So they're definitely out there. We're a bunch of old ladies with drums. I think that's going to be the next.
Yeah.
The next
something human about it.
Who needs shoes? We got drums.
There's a group called the Fishing Musicians that goes somewhere every September, usually a western state. Fly fishing in these rivers and it's only 25 people, but and then we play every night. That's the point. And they all, there's a band set up in this little lodge, and the 3 drummers for this Fishing Musicians are me, Greg Mackey from, world famous Mackey has invented so many things in the sound industry, and Danny Serafin.
Oh,
there you go.
My goodness.
I get more fun. I mean, the fishing's fun, but to me, in those evenings, to sit behind Danny and just, watch him play, and then have him hand me the sticks and go, "Okay, your turn." I mean, I don't know, man. That's childhood wish number 53.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah. And then there's the Italian club. All the Italian drummers and that get together and have.
I haven't heard of that. What's that?
Oh my God!
No, I didn't know about that.
There's Emil and the Picaros and Murata, and they all and Vinny, and they all get together.
Really?
And they have
Wow.
a big Italian meal. And I know I'm not thinking about all the other ones, but they all get together.
I hope Liberty DeVito's in that group.
Yeah,
that
but he doesn't. But he doesn't live on the West Coast. But all the West Coast guys get together, and they have a big pasta. Your friend, Vinny's friend,
Jerry Leone.
Yeah, Leone.
Yes.
All of them. They get together. It's a big Italian drummer thing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just all of the camaraderie is just insane. When I had that drummers roundtable thing with all the studio guys, it was like a party. I mean, they said, "Oh my God, we never get to be able to be together." That was like, it was.
That's true. I mean, these people are all working, and
yes,
and that's one of the things about I think if there's been an essence of the NAMM show that we've tried to enhance. I mean, it goes back to 1901, so we didn't invent any of this stuff. It's always been there. But if we've tried to enhance any part of it, is that the connection, the limbic system that makes everyone feel human.
Right.
I always like to call it. The NAMM show is the annual family reunion of the music industry, and a trade show happens to break out. And so, the idea that these people are all through the year working, doing what they do,
right.
in many cases traveling around the world, and yet there's one weekend a year.
That's right.
They'll get together, talk about what's happening, see new products, of course, but also take a look at their kid pictures or grandkid pictures and talk about this or that, or we do the tribute to those who have passed away the year before. So there's a little bit of a church feel, to just as a symbolic, saying goodbye to those who
Yeah.
the loved ones that we lost.
Yeah.
That's what the heartbeat of the music industry is, and I think that's what the heartbeat of the NAMM show is.
And everybody I interview at the NAMM show, when I ask them, what are you doing here today? What's the highlight? Oh, they'll say, I'm here for my, whoever I'm here for. And then
Right.
the last thing they say to me is, and oh my God, I get to see everybody I love and all my buddies. And it's the once a year that I get to hug, Jim Keltner or hug, Rick Marotta.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, it's what it is. But anyway, back to you for a minute, because this is the thing I want to know. Tell me about all the fun stories that you've had sitting in with your idols and all the idols you've gotten to meet. I mean, we've touched upon a little bit,
God.
but
Come on, Robin. How much time do we have?
come on,
Like 3 days?
we've got as much time as it takes.
We don't have anything scheduled till next week. You're good.
I'll share a couple, and probably the first and foremost is being with Todd Rundgren. We had played in Japan the night before, and he had to get back to L.A. because he was going to be in Ringo Starr's All-Star Band on that tour.
Oh.
And it happened to be, unfortunately, the same night of the Rodney King riots in L.A.
Oh, my.
And I remember being in Tokyo in my hotel room after the show, watching the L.A. burning, and then going to the airport with Todd, and we flew home. We flew together because everyone else was staying in Japan. He literally had to go back to do a 1-hour taping of, one of the TV shows at the studio where the band was rehearsing. They were doing some promo. So he had to be back for that. So we flew over. I had the guitars. He jumps in a car ahead of me. I'm grabbing luggage and the guitars to go to SR after, and seeing the devastation of all that had occurred the night before. But having watched it from the other side of the Pacific hours before, just surreal. Anyway, we get to the SIR. They do the taping. And then Todd and I are flying back up to San Francisco where we lived. And I hadn't met Ringo yet. They're rehearsing, and I'm just, of course, looking around this little soundstage going, oh, my God, that's Ringo Starr. And so Todd and I were kind of talking about what time we should leave to get to Burbank Airport to this United flight we're on. And I hear this voice behind me go, about this time, I'd allow about a half an hour. And it was just like the Yellow Submarine voice, that's like,
God.
That's Ringo. So I turn around, and he enters the conversation about how much time we should allow for traffic at that time of day to get over to Burbank. And that was just one of those moments, because I was afraid to go introduce myself. I didn't want to do that. There's no way. But the way he just ended our conversation by giving us advice on how much time to allow for traffic was just one of those never forget kind of moments.
Surreal.
Anyway, that was a fun one.
Yeah, surreal.
Yes. There's just been too many. And these are, whether it's taking Chad Smith to lobby, and on Capitol Hill with John Boehner, and Chad Smith goes to John Boehner. Come on, you're Speaker of the House. You got to get these guys, what are you, kind of wussing out here? That's the way Chad can. And John Boehner goes, look, I was raised above a bar in Cleveland. You ain't dealing with no virgin here.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that was just, again, one of those moments that were just fun. I mean, we were there for a purpose, music education, and there's Chad being Chad, and it was just a classic. But, even last year, I mean, just this past January, we're up on stage, and who do we have on? Ronnie Spector. And so Liberty DeVito and Hal Blaine doing double drums with Ronnie Spector. I'm sitting on the side of the stage watching Hal play, and just, knowing that, this is one of my childhood heroes. And they're just looking at Liberty's looking over at, and they're just smiling at each other.
Yeah.
Hal's looking over at Liberty, the young buck, and I just was another one of those moments you just kind of lock in your memory bank and go, that was pretty cool. Here's the guy who actually played on that song.
Yes.
And here's Liberty kind of doing his part on top of it. So.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of them, and you must know the same thing when you interview people. When you get to meet people at the NAMM show, you get to know them a little bit. You get to know about their families, and the common thread is most drummers are very grateful that they're able to have been successful in their career. They're not egotistical. Very few have I ever met that weren't just the nicest people in the world. Grateful for where they were, and always trying to learn something new. Hey, show me that. I saw what you're doing over there on that record. How did you do that?
Yep.
So, those are the memories that I take, that drummers...
What about sitting in? Have you sat in with anybody at NAMM, or have you gotten to... I mean...
it's kind of funny. I mean, I've done a lot of sitting in, and that's when you kind of remember what you know, or more importantly, what you've forgotten. But I think the fun thing I've done recently is year before last. You ever hear that Bonzo Bash that they did to celebrate? It was originally, I guess, one of the anniversaries of Bonzo's birthday, I think. Anyway, they put it together, and we were looking to do some kind of events in Russia for the NAMM Russia show. So we brought them over to Russia, the people who do the Bonzo Bash, really good, really nice people. And so I got to sit in, and they were saying, well, what song you want to play? And because over there, I guess Bonzo Bash was sort of a competition. They brought in drummers from all over the whole Russian area. I mean, I met a guy who had flown in, from the furthest reach of Siberia to be in this thing. It was crazy. But anyway, so I said, okay, I'm going to pay homage to Bernard, so I'm going to do Fool in the Rain. And so I got to do the Purdy Shuffle on Fool in the Rain, and it was just, I remember sitting there in Moscow in this beautiful park at, doing this Bonzo Bash thing with all Russian players, by the way. The whole band was Russian. They couldn't understand a word of English. And we're playing Fool in the Rain, and, it was just really outside and one of those beautiful nights, and I thought, okay, this is nice.
What am I doing? I'm here in Russia. Yeah, that must have been, again, surreal. What a crazy life.
It's not an easy song to play right.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated, but it's tough to get that one right, especially that middle section where it goes into that kind of samba thing.
Wow.
That's the other thing, you realize how tired I got. By the end of that samba piece, I'm like, oh my God, there's like another 24 bars to go here.
You must have a drum set at home.
Oh, yeah. No, I got electronic and
and you
just
must
slide back and forth and just play whatever, the time of day, whether I put on headphones and do the electronics or whether I can make a bunch of noise and play my acoustics.
So when you have a full day at the office, you get to come home and you work out, you play. Stress reduction. And, and I'm always thinking, it's not too late. This could still pop for me. There's some band out there who's just going to be looking for you don't.
Some young up-and-coming guy. And
you
it still happen. I'm never going to rule it out.
Sure it can.
No, you
Robin, don't crush my dream.
That's right.
Babe, do not crush my dream here. It could happen. I grow my hair again, diet, so it's not gray.
You tease you.
I could do it. Come on.
And what would your wife say?
She'd be the lead
If they
singer.
get me out of the house, she may say, "Go for it, honey. I'll see you in a month."
Joe, just a quick question. What's the acoustic kit at home that you play?
Oh, I'm not going to go into
it.
You
can't do that.
Oh, right. Can't play favorites.
I love them all. I have to be Switzerland on that. I love them all.
I got you. Log with a head stretched over it. I got it.
Yep. That would not be diplomatic.
Okay.
But you know what? I didn't know that you just said out loud. I did not know there was a Russian NAMM show.
Oh, yeah. It's like our fifth year now. It's very complicated to do business there, but we originally felt that it was an opportunity to, for many reasons, to bring some of the instrument manufacturers that didn't have a vehicle to show their products there, and or to, get to have some cultural exchange between our members and the musicians. And there's a wonderful music tradition there, classical, piano, and they've got a thriving rock and roll scene. Politics aside,
I didn't even know that they allowed that kind of real freedom.
Very good people there, and a rich musical tradition. Again, politics aside, underneath, they're human beings just like everywhere else. And we do a lot of. We're involved as a small partnership in Music China in Shanghai, and same idea. I mean, we're really interested in doing these. We're working in places that you, as a kid growing up in the Cold War, you would have never thought you'd be working in.
So tell me exactly where all there are NAMM shows.
Well, that's it. We work with the partnership with Music China, NAMM Russia, and then Winter NAMM and Summer NAMM. That's pretty much.
Okay, well, that's astounding.
The show production.
Okay. Yeah. When did the Russia thing start?
September. Oh, it started about 5 years ago.
Wow.
We've been in China now, I think 12? Maybe longer now. Maybe 12, 13 years in China.
What interesting other places. I did not know, and I'm fascinated by that.
Now, on the flip side, think about it. We've got member companies in over 100 countries. There's over 127 countries represented at the NAMM show. I mean, it really is a little United Nations of people that, are in the business all around the world, selling, making, distributing, these kind of products. So, it is, and I've got a staffer today somewhere in the Mediterranean for the International Music Council meeting. We've got people at any given day around the world representing NAMM, representing our advocacy for education. So, the NAMM, this little small and mighty group, at any given day is represented around the world promoting music.
Wow, what a stellar operation! What a joyful.
Hey, I look around this room and still wonder when the adults are coming back, because we shouldn't be allowed to have this kind of fun, because we do what we love to do. And it's just ironic that all the experiences as I alluded to before, culminated in this kind of opportunity. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I don't know what I would have done differently. I still would have loved to have a thriving recording and touring career. It wasn't for me. It wasn't in the cards for me. And so this is maybe the second best gig I could have.
No, it sounds. I mean, we all take the path that some of us take the path that is presented to us, and it sounds like you got a damn good path, Joe.
We find our place.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm very jealous. You do a lot of good things for a lot of good people, and it's really
about all of us that have had the opportunity to stay in music in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all pretty lucky. I mean, I got nothing against the plumbing fixture industry. I'm sure that their trade shows are thriving and they have a lot of fun, but it wouldn't suit me. And the fact that we get to stay involved in the things we care about, and that the products we are moving actually are the things we love. I mean, to me, drums, I don't know if all drummers feel this way. They are beautiful. The curves, the lines, they are works of art. They should be in every art gallery in the world, if you ask me. Because drums are pure art. I could stare at them. I think they're so beautiful,
That's true. Who needs pictures of Marilyn?
So we're very lucky, I think, to have been involved and stayed involved in music in any form or fashion, whether you work for a manufacturer or work at a retail, big or small. That the fact that we've been able to do what we do, change lives through music, I don't know. Again, looking back, I don't think I'll have too many regrets about that.
Well, NAMM is very lucky to have such a passionate and adoring person at their helm. I think it's wonderful. No, I mean, it's and somebody who came from music. I mean, I don't know, that what other people before you had, but wow, musician and passion, and I mean, you're the whole package. So.
Well, I think I know what the membership is like, because I was for 16 years a member. So at least I have to remember that's where the roots are. I always have to go back to serving, and how can we be more of more service to the membership. And again, that's where you get to be a drummer. I think we think in terms of servant leadership. If you work in retail, I think you learn to be a servant leader, and all those things kind of transfer into what I'm doing today, I think.
And before we go, there's just one last story. I think I heard you tell somebody that you were playing a Stevie Wonder song, Sly and the Family Stone song, and he walked in.
Oh, yeah. What was that? That was at the Zoom party. Again, that was 2 shows ago, I think now, over at the Marriott. These are all at the show. These are like these wonderful...
Right.
And it was Stevie Wonder's band, and I can't remember who was singing. It was one of the 80s really big... he was in a family band, and we played Everyday People. And I actually played one of his songs, too, that same set. Anyway, I'm just looking around going, these are some of the best musicians, if not the best musicians in the entire world.
And how did you end up playing drum? I mean, how did you end up on the drums?
Well, I think that was Scott Goodman, one of my friends who's CEO of Zoom. He, when the organizer, when the manufacturers say, hey, I'm going to have a booth and I want to have a party. It was some sort of anniversary reunion. So we help him get the room at the Marriott. We do all this coordinating.
Right.
And then he goes, well, you want to sit in? I'm going, maybe. One well, what song you want to play? Oh, Dance to the Music. Nah, I'd get too tired on that one. We started thinking of songs that have a kind of medium tempo that an old guy like me can actually get through. And I thought, Everyday People, it's not too long.
Cool.
I wanted to play Hot Fun in the Summertime, but I thought, man, if I screw up that shuffle, then I'm hugely embarrassed in front of everybody. So Everyday People was a compromise on stamina, pretty easy beat, and could get out without embarrassing myself.
And
DeBarge. That's who the singer was. Something DeBarge. Anyway, great singer.
Yes.
He was the lead singer of that family band. So that was a good one. How do you remember that one?
So what happened? Sly walked. What happened?
That was great. I played well.
And
end of story.
And Sly walked in.
Oh, yeah, I did all that, too. Yeah, I can't remember if he got up on stage, but I think he got up on stage and sang the song after me. Yeah.
This isn't
up on that one.
This isn't floating around on YouTube in the form of a video somewhere?
Scott sent me a link once, but that was I think a private link, because I don't know if they've gotten all the clearances.
Right.
But who knows? There's probably stuff floating on YouTube that, well, actually, there's probably stuff I don't want to have anyone see. But the 80s were luckily not so well videoed or photographed. I tell my kids today, man, you will not have that advantage that I had being in a band touring in the 80s without cell phones.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that must have been very, very cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Very, very cool. Well, I'm thrilled to have had this time with you, Joe. Long overdue.
Yeah. No, Robin, you realize I've been pining away for you to interview me probably since I moved to California at age 20 as a young aspiring drummer. And it has finally come true. As I said, a little later than I had hoped, but I got my interview with Robin Flans. Finally.
Yeah. Well,
I can die a happy man now.
Yeah. Well, it has been so much my honor, and I thank you. I know you're an incredibly busy man, and you have the Summer NAMM coming up, so I can't thank you enough for taking the time out. And I want to thank everybody for what?
No. I was just going to say that as far as the on-demand, like if anybody wants to hear this episode after it's completed here, but they can go to www.spreaker.com /RFDI, because this interview with Joe, as well as some of the people he was talking about, are on that site, and you can share them with your friends and anytime
Joe,
you want.
It's going to be up on my Facebook. Do you want us to post it on, I don't know, is there a NAMM site, or I don't know.
Yeah. If you send me the link and we'll get it on. We've got multiple channels to get it out on.
Send you on the link via email?
Yes, please.
Okay, you got it.
Are you going to ask the audience to
do the thing? And yes, we're going to give Joe a big hand.
Thank you, gang.
And so thank you so much, Joe. Thank you. And everybody, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned on my Facebook page for more information on our next show.
Thanks again.